I was thinking about quitting university. Everything is too much. I just felt completely lost. I think when that happened, particularly, I think it changed from something is happening to me to I'm doing this to me.
Welcome to the show, Matt.
Thanks, Eddie.
So, how does it feel being the first guest in the podcast?
It feels great. And I must say, it feels funny to be in the same room with you and doing some sort of project again. It feels like like we're back in school again. But no, I was thinking about this podcast and the opportunity that I have to transform all of the hard times that I've been through and good times that I've been through into some sort of helpful thing for other people. And if I can, help one person, many people with this interview, I think all of the shit that I've been through, at least there's something good about it, And no, I'm really excited to be here and to help with this project.
Yeah, thank you for making the time. And as you just said, if this podcast is going to help one person at least, well, I feel like it did its job. So that's entirely the goal. When you think about the FR Canton, what's the memory that comes up?
I think it would have to be the moment that I turned in my master's thesis and I dropped it off in the box. And, I was one of the people who had to turn it in a little bit late as well. I turned it in a semester late, but I was just pushing and pushing. And when I finally got to that point, after all of those months, years, and just dropping it off and then biking back home, I think it was the best bike ride I've ever had. And that was just such a culminating moment for me in Villach. That was kind of like my journey here. My objective is complete, and it was amazing experience.
Right.
Yeah.
So why international business management?
Yeah. So I think a lot of people choose business to study. This was our master's, but I also did my bachelor's in global business management. And I think a lot of people study what their dad does. And that was the case for me. So my dad is an entrepreneur and he didn't really have a global focus, but I kind of discovered at a young age that I really just liked global things. I was into Italian food, French soccer, learning different languages as a kid. So I decided to combine what my dad did with kind of this international focus, and it's led me to just continue on that journey. And I think all my job experiences have told me it's the field I want to stay in. I don't want to leave it. So I would say I kind of just naturally fell into doing that as a master's as well, since I'd already been doing that in my bachelor's and my work up to that point. So.
All right. What did you expect life in Austria to be like?
I expected absolutely nothing, actually, because, as a typical person growing up in the US, I didn't have so much of a worldview outside of the US and the bigger countries in the world. And as we know, Austria is not really a big country. And I think a lot of Americans don't know much about Austria. Really, what I was hoping for is to have a great experience and stay if I liked it here. But I thought, it's only 2 years, the master's program, so I can always leave if I want to. I think my thought at the time was I really like Europe. So my actual thoughts regarding Austria were based on what I had just Googled at the time, which was, it's a pretty country, it's a safe country. And I thought, you know what, let's give it a shot. My expectations were, I wouldn't say that I expected anything low. I didn't expect anything because I didn't know anything about the country at the time.
Fair enough. Fair enough. It's interesting you say that. So additionally, how hard was it being a non-EU in Austria? Were there any challenges in your regards to work permit, the residence permit, the paperwork?
Yeah. Let's see. I don't want to come across as ignorant, but I mean it in the sense of growing up as like a white male in the US. You don't face much prejudice, and I'm not trying to say that there's prejudice in Austria, but I think it's kind of the first time that I've really faced a situation where I felt like a minority in many ways.
Oh wow.
Because like I say, I think if you look at the media and look at the current situation in the US, it's kind of white male driven, right? And I think when I first came to Austria and I realized things are quite difficult sometimes as a non-EU, even just trying to stay in the country because you have to have a job or you have to be studying in order to stay. Finding a job is very difficult, particularly in the beginning, because the company really has to make a huge effort for you. Wait extra time, sign all sorts of paperwork. I'm sure they have to do, different kinds of expenses related to hiring non-EUs. And I think it's very difficult to find a job as a non-EU in many ways. And I think that's something people struggle with. But I think ultimately, if you prove that you are both passionate about the country and, let's say the company that you're looking into, but as well bring some sort of value, which I think a lot of people do from non-EU countries. You bring different perspectives, different skills, etc., different languages. I think ultimately you can make it. It's just hard sometimes, you know?
Yeah. I can totally relate.
Yeah.
And it takes very, very much level of patience to get there.
Yeah. But I will say, if I can add, I think one nice thing about this more difficult process is I think everybody that goes through this process really has to want it. Like and I think a lot of immigrants in Austria really, I think they really feel pride to be here. And I think oftentimes in the US, they go there for, because it's just, it's known as being typically that land of opportunity, or they're trying to escape their homeland, or, whatever it is. But I think in Austria, oftentimes people that come here really love the country, and they have to put through such an effort in order to stay here sometimes that I think a lot of it, I kind of share in this pride, and there's this kind of pride in the community. And I really like that.
Okay. So if we're going to take it back to the life in the dorms, right? How was that like? What did that teach you actually?
So I already went through the whole dorm experience in the US. But I think the dorm experience in Austria was very different in many ways. I liked it a lot better personally.
Really?
I think, because, I think the thing with US universities oftentimes is people really go a little bit extreme on the partying. It's like the first time they leave from their parents' house, and then they're, living alone, and there's a whole bunch of 18-year-olds that are, still going, having, all these hormones and everything. And I think in Austria it's a little bit different, because I think people are a little bit more oriented towards being there for actually studying, and they have like the objective in mind, also making friends, also networking, but I don't think it's as much as like just going crazy and partying and everything.
Exactly.
What I noticed, I would say the first glaring difference that I noticed that I really enjoyed in Austria was when I started to, hang out with my new classmates in the dorm. And people would not bring their phones with them. Sometimes, we would go to the lake and they wouldn't bring their phone, or maybe they would, but I would never see it. And I think that was one of the greatest experiences that I had in a long time. Just the simple fact of not bringing a phone with you, because it just, to me, there's so much more being in the moment in Austria than there was in the US, at least in my experiences, and I really felt that immediately. And I think generally the dorm felt it felt like home compared to a hotel kind of, and I think everybody really, even if I wasn't friends with person in room 2 or room 3, I would see them and I would trust them and I would feel part of kind of a community. I would say, and at a certain point, I moved in. So I was living in Stuvå, which is the Studentenwohnheim, which is right next to the university. And then eventually I moved into this Stuho, which is, where I got closer to you, obviously, because we were living in the same floor. And that was even definitely a lot better of an experience because we had, 6 different rooms, 6 different people living together. And we grew a lot closer in the 6-person group than I did living with just one other guy that was hardly ever there, actually. But I would say generally I lucked out and I never had a bad experience in my dorms.
Oh.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
If any of our professors are currently or will listen to this podcast, is there a specific professor that, shaped how you think and your career path and where you are right now?
Man, I feel like one of those people that wins like a Grammy and then they have to consider, okay, how many people do I have to thank? Seriously, I think I could name so many names here, but if I really had to stick to one, it would have to be Dietmar, our program director, because ultimately he's the reason why I chose the university in the first place, because I was having, I was obviously applying to different universities at the time, and the admissions interview that I had with him and Colin Hella, who is the German professor.
Nice guy.
Great guy. In fact, I could thank him too. Thank you. I did a really nice creative writing class with him. So if he's listening.
Yeah.
But no, Dietmar really, he just inspired me from the moment that I met him and continuously through the program, after the program as well. And he's also just such a amazing example of somebody that just has this desire to constantly learn and constantly help and constantly do everything he can in order to really just make the world a better place. Absolutely. And I love that. So I would name him for sure.
Okay. Yeah. Speaking of learning, I think he just graduated again from Oxford University. It's like, like that was crazy for me.
Yeah. And as far as I know, I think he was, in addition to his current job, right?
Yeah.
So he's leading a program and he's doing all these research things at the school, and then he's also flying back and forth to England to study his PhD. It's crazy. Yeah.
And from that, it's you also absorb such energies. Like of course you can choose like, okay, he's but like for me at least, I just absorbed it all in. Like look how much he's going through, and he didn't stop, and I don't think he's stopping. And also the publishing of papers and books.
Mm-hmm.
Very impressive.
Yeah.
So at that stage in life, speaking back to the dorms, what did success look like to you?
Success. I think success for me was, as funny as this sounds, but I had mentioned it a little bit before, staying in Austria. I think a lot of my family and friends thought it was a cute little trip that I was taking,
Yeah.
And they thought, oh, this guy's going to leave the US and he's going to be realize why the US is the best country in the world and want to come back in a year or two. Not only that, but also the difficulties of staying in Austria sometimes that we've already discussed.
Yes.
My ultimate objective was not to graduate. It was to stay in Austria. Of course I wanted to graduate, but I think that was really what it was at the time. And that also means, though, to like the country enough to want to stay. It wasn't just to prove everybody wrong. It was also, my goal was to really feel like this is my new home and also want to be accepted here. So I would say that was honestly what success felt like at the time.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to shift a little bit to discipline.
Okay.
So back again to the student life. Were you disciplined then when I met you? Because you were pretty disciplined those days when you always went to the gym. You always, had a meal plan. You always did this. You always did that.
Yeah.
And so with that gap since we last met, what would you say with regards to discipline? Why is it more now or maybe relatively stable?
I would say since I moved out of my parents' house, I've always been a disciplined person. I kind of decided, okay, this is the beginning of a new life. Let's just get disciplined. And the thing is I'm a very stubborn person with myself, and I just do things to the extreme oftentimes, which leads to good things and bad things. Discipline was one of them. And I would say I'm a very disciplined person for sure. But what's funny about my discipline now is part of my discipline is trying to not be as disciplined.
Oh, wow.
Because, it leads to difficult situations. And I think one of the reasons why I'm in Austria is because I really like the more laid back nature of life and valuing time more than money, kind of. And for me, I really try to relax a little bit more and spend more time in the moment than always planning and everything. But I would say I'm still within the top 5% of disciplined people in Austria for sure. But no, I would say I'm about the same level as discipline as when we were living together for sure.
Oh, okay. All right. All right. So now if we could go a bit deeper. Yeah.
Sure.
So I think there was a time where you had challenges. Yeah. At least some of those challenges I personally witnessed. Yeah. So when did things start going off mentally or physically?
Yeah. COVID, really, because what's unfortunate is, and I know you were living in Austria since when actually?
2014.
2014. Yeah. Okay. So 6 years before COVID. I moved to Austria during COVID, and the first 2 months or so, 3 months, it was in this period where things were open again. There were no mask policies. People were able to interact, things like that. After that, it really quickly got dark in many ways. There was winter, which was for me as a Californian, the winter was dark, and there were lockdowns. People didn't have any desire or couldn't, legally, technically, socialize. And I was at the time living in this dorm where I only had one roommate, but he was almost never there. I didn't have so many opportunities to interact. Our classes started becoming hybrid or online, and I felt really alone. I had no family. And I would say, honestly, maybe December, January particularly were really hard for me because that's kind of the time when people spend holidays with their family and everything. I was completely alone, and I started to really just get really depressed at that time. And I think people can easily notice a huge difference between my mindset, my personality from the day when I arrived, which was, this kind of naive, curious California skater boy kind of personality, to kind of just this a little bit more depressed, lost person half a year later. So I would say it happened relatively fast, but I think I like to put some of the blame on COVID for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I can totally relate being from Africa and always having access to the sun and, and it's different. And this time hits different. And we are in winter currently. So yeah, we're still there, but in a bit where summer's coming. That's the good news. Yeah. So yeah, I remember, you being, because I also like this topic really interests me in terms of diet, sleep, routine. How did those affect you? Because there was a time I think I remember, and I hope that was you, where you told me like, I was up all night, and so I sleep during the day. And I don't know if that was, there was that time, and it was like, oh, Matt, if you had a night shift, that would make sense, but I was like, you're doing it voluntarily. I don't think this is how it, so please break that down a bit for us.
Where should I start? Something that I never told you is, and I guess it's funny that the first time I'm telling you is on a podcast and it's not when I'm living with you. But honestly, I think this will be kind of an eye-opening moment for you when I tell you, I mean, it was depression that led to anorexia. So I really was anorexic. Without getting too explicit, essentially my goal at a certain point was just to continuously lose weight, right? And I can't tell you that it was a choice because it wasn't a choice. At a certain point, something in my mind changed. I think naturally I was losing weight through depression. And at the time, my goal was not to lose weight. And then at a certain point, my mind somehow convinced me that I should just keep going. And I found out afterwards, this malnutrition does have this effect on certain people, and I guess I'm genetically disposed to this. But at a certain point, it really became my objective, and I really just lived. God, I don't know how long it was, maybe a year and a half of just this hell where as you say, I would go to bed literally at 5 or 6 in the morning, as my other roommates were waking up. I would wake up in the afternoon. I would go to the office, which is crazy because I actually had a job at this time.
Oh, wow.
But I mean, I'll get to it later, but this was obviously not a great situation at work. And then I would leave work. I would go to the gym. And then it would take me like 2 hours to psych myself up enough for a workout because I was just so exhausted. I was so drained. I couldn't do anything. People were looking at me like, why is this guy here instead of just eating or something, And I would abuse caffeine. I would get that energy drink at the gym and just try to get enough energy to work out. I would sit in like the bathroom stall, and there was only one stall, so people were like knocking and everything, which is but I would just think like, all right, I just have to do it. And then tomorrow I'll change, and then I would work out for like 4 hours, which is completely ridiculous. And then, the gym would close. I would come back home. I would make dinner. And then I did eat dinner. That was like, because I think for me, it's crazy, but when you're anorexic, you're constantly thinking about food. So I would be like thinking about what I'm going to eat the entire day, and then I would do everything to deserve it. And then I would take like 3 hours eating dinner. Like it was crazy because it was just like, that was the one thing I enjoyed during the day, but I would still not eat enough, obviously.
Oh, wow.
And then I would go to bed, and then the day would start again. And it was just the cycle where when you get into that cycle, what's going to motivate you to get out? I just felt completely lost, and it was an insanely dark time. And I mean, I'm sure for you, this explains a lot now, because you saw me go through a lot of this, but I was super secret about it, obviously. But that was, at the time, that was really the situation. That was what was going on. So I'm not sure if I answered the initial question, but
you perfectly did. And, yeah, I could see how even emotionally got triggered with it. Yeah. And I remember, sometimes Sam and Muhammad, I think you remember, they were like, hey man, we need to do something. We need to, and I think there was a time maybe you got annoyed where we were constantly knocking on the door, because at the same time we didn't want to push it, because we knew you were right at the edge and we didn't know what the right move was, know. So that was difficult to see, at least, we could only imagine what you're going through. No,
I mean, there were a lot of people that had the same kind of mentality as you did. Like, I mean, everybody knew something was going on, but nobody wanted to take like a super dramatic approach, obviously, because that could also be bad. And, like, I remember particularly when we came back for the start of the second year is when people really noticed a huge change. And one of our classmates, I won't mention last names, but Julia from Spain, she met up with me for coffee one time and basically just to tell me, hey, what's going on? And that changed something in my head, but it still wasn't enough, and you guys as well were doing your best to kind of tell me that, hey, maybe you should, consider blah, 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 or I don't know. But ultimately it had to be up to me because the problem was internal. So,
since we were sharing the kitchen, I could tell. I was like, Matt, I think what you're cooking is not enough. It was. I think that was the big one I was always talking about.
Yeah. And at the time too, speaking of the kitchen, it was funny because I was going vegan, which is, I think I could be vegan now and it'd be okay because I'm healthy now. But at the time, that was even more difficult for my situation. And it was just funny because I was living with roommates that were constantly, I think had to be among the top meat eaters in the dorm. And they were constantly, I don't even know what you call it, but when you're, hitting the meat with the big hammer and everything. And, and meanwhile, I'm like in the corner, just kind of, I don't even know what I'm making, like one piece of bread with like some vegan butter or something. And it's like,
I remember those days, sometimes I was just starting in disbelief and I'm like, and again, at the same time, I didn't want to make it more difficult, when you're in that situation, you don't want someone at the back of your head, so. But and obviously being far from home, that made things just, more difficult, right? Or how would you say it?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely felt really alone. I don't know how much it's difficult to say. I mean, I think once I was already in the state that I was in, I don't know how much my childhood friends and family could have helped me. I think it was such a state of isolation that perhaps they couldn't have done anything anyway. It would have had to be up to me to get better. But I do think that largely contributed to me getting into the situation in the first place. Because when COVID first came, I was still living in the US. I came to Austria during this kind of second wave. The first wave, I was still in the US, but I was living with my best friend in this rental house. And that was actually one of the best experiences I've had for a long time. It was, It was an amazing experience, Eric, if you're listening. And I didn't feel that same sort of depression because I think we were like kind of sharing this experience and just commenting on, all the crazy things that we have to do differently in life now, or the crazy things that we'd see at the supermarket or whatever it was, and but I think, when I first, like I said, the lack of socialization, the lack of family, being completely alone during this entire holiday season, etc., that definitely contributed to me falling into the situation in the first place.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I have a lot to relate to that, Yeah, we've just been, it's phases, man. It's crazy. And we're tribal creatures, we can't coexist by ourselves. We do need each other,
Yeah.
And I feel sometimes that's what's missing, even today, it's it's crazy making an appointment with someone who is close and dear to you, and it's like, yeah, it's going to be like this, and it shouldn't be that difficult, and sometimes that takes a toll to us without us knowing. Yeah. So, final question about the part where you're breaking, or when you broke.
Sure.
So when did you realize something had to change?
Now, when did I realize something had to change, or when did I start to change?
No, when did you realize, oh, this is a problem,
Ooh. That was very early on, actually. Like I said, at a certain point, my mindset shifted to, this kind of anorexia mindset. I think when that happened, particularly, I think it changed from something is happening to me to I'm doing this to me. Because I think before it's kind of like depression. It's like you don't really try to depress yourself. But when you have anorexia, you try to pursue that goal. And I think at that point is when I really realized this is a problem. But just because you realize something is a problem doesn't mean that you fix the problem right away. I mean, it's this problem that you consider it a problem for 10% of the time, and 90% of the time it's like, this is still for some reason your goal, even though you know it's a problem and you want to get better. And I think you can contribute that to a lot of, or you can say that about a lot of different difficulties in life. I think there's a lot of alcoholics that know they're alcoholics, but they don't change. I think there's a lot of drug users that know they're drug users, but they don't change. It's the same thing. And so I think very early on, I did realize that it was a problem, and I can't say I can't tell you one specific moment necessarily where I realized this is a problem, but I can say it was pretty early on. Yeah.
All right. So speaking of change, what was then the first change you did?
Yeah.
To try to get yourself out of this? Because I'm going to say try, it's...
Yeah.
Because at that time, nothing is promised.
Yeah. When you say try, though, it's interesting because for me, and perhaps this is part of my discipline, when I made that first step to try, it was all uphill, or do they say all uphill or all down? It was all uphill. Yes.
Okay.
It's not an uphill battle, but essentially once I decided to make that change, I was getting better step by step. I wasn't better immediately, obviously. Took a long time, but I was getting better. And I'll tell you the moment exactly is I decided to quit my job.
Okay.
So I was actually going to my best friend that I was living with, Eric, that I told you about already. We were sharing this house. He was coming to visit me for the first time, and we were going to go to Oktoberfest. Okay. And so I decided I'm going to quit my job the day before I leave. And so I walked into work, and I told my manager, can we go into a private room? And he's like, yeah. We already didn't have a good relationship at the time because of me, because I was really just a terrible employee. I'm surprised that he kept me for so long. And so I don't think it came as much of a surprise to him that something was going on and that, we were going to have a serious conversation. But I basically just told him, I have made the difficult decision to resign. And in that moment, he never had any sort of angry reaction. It was complete worry for me, concern. And he's just like, Matt, what's going on? And I broke down. I just started crying and everything. And everything is too much. Everything is too much. I have to quit. I was thinking about quitting university. I was so convinced that I was just going to drop my university as well. Oh. But job was the first step. And I thought, okay, maybe if I quit my job, I can somehow manage this. And he basically told me at the time, I'm not going to let you fail. You're going to be a success. You're going to stay in this company. You're going to stay with this position. You're going to finish your master's thesis, which I was doing with, in collaboration with my job. Yeah. It was similar theme, and you're going to be a success story. You're not going to fail. Go have fun at Oktoberfest, come back, and we're going to make you succeed. And that was such a relief for me because I felt so guilty for so many months and I was thinking about quitting for so long. And then when I told him that, it was like this moment where it was just so powerful. And I remembered so well that I had, even though I was feeling like such shit at the time, I went and I had a great time at Oktoberfest. I reunited with a friend I hadn't seen for a couple years. And then I came back and I just had this absolute drive to completely start changing everything and start getting better. And it's crazy, man. It really was just such a powerful experience.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. It's crazy how sometimes all you need is just little bit of encouragement to, take you out in a very messed up situation.
Yeah.
And I think that was as little, yes, it meant the world to you clearly. And I think that was the drive for you forward.
Yeah. And what's crazy about that is for him, that was just kind of a conversation. It's just kind of like, I'm sure he's been through it before because he's been in a managerial position for a while, I'm sure. I'm not sure exactly his work history, but for him, it was probably just some sort of work conversation and it didn't impact his life so much. He probably went home and had dinner with his kids and family and went hang gliding on the weekend. He's a big hang glider and everything. But for me, I don't think he realizes even to this day how much that single moment impacted my life forever, really. And it's crazy to think about, which is why also whenever I have conversations with people now, I don't assume that they are thinking the same way about the conversation as I am, It could mean a lot more to them than it does to me about anything. And I think it's crazy to think about. Yeah.
Okay. And then I'm assuming from then on, you also readjusted how you eat, you readjusted how you slept, you readjusted your routine. So what stuck? What was easier for you to do?
What was easier for me to do between what? Sorry.
So because we also had so your previous boss does this huge encouragement.
Yep.
But obviously there are underlying issues that had to be fixed.
Yep.
Diet being at the top.
Yep.
Sleep being another one at the top.
Yep.
Yeah. And just your routine in general.
Yeah. So I would say the first thing that I changed, and this sounds silly, but just waking up early, I know that people are genetically disposed to being night owls or morning people or whatever. I started waking up in the morning, started waking up at 5:30, and I started to go to the gym in the morning, not work out 4 hours, work out, an hour lifting. My cardio at the time, I didn't do cardio because I could have died if I was doing cardio. My heart was in such a terrible position. And then I would go to work. I would actually go to work. I would stay there the whole time. I would work on my thesis and I would, work with my boss as much as I could. I would come home and I started to do yoga at the time, which really helped my just working on flexibility too. Something about it just, this period of about 30 minutes where I would just kind of feel myself, and both, physically and mentally, because I would listen to either music or a podcast at the time, really helped me just to calm. I would eat more than I was before, and I would go to bed at a reasonable time. And like I said, right when I got back from this trip to Oktoberfest, I told myself, just do it. Just start. Just start to do it. And I won't say it was easy. It wasn't easy, but I stuck to that.
Okay.
And after, God, I would like to say maybe 2 months of just doing this consistently, even though everything was telling me go back to what you used to be, it was easier.
Okay.
Because really, to me, it felt easier. This was hard. This was hard work changing, After about 2 months of this, when I started to feel stronger and feel like I was more in control of my life again, there was no turning back. That's when I realized life is actually good. I can do this. I can get better. I started to feel happy for the first time in a long time. I started to feel stronger for the first time in a long time. I started to notice that people around me were less concerned, but they didn't want to tell me necessarily. But they realized something something is changing again. And by the time I had left Villach, my journey to getting healthy again was not 100% complete.
Okay.
But I felt like I changed in my head this place from this is where everything turned black to this is where everything got bright again.
Wow.
And I really have at this moment an amazing relationship with the city and memories and everything, because I associate it with this is the time where I almost died. And then this is the time where I found my life again, and not even again, but really just I found my life. Now I finally feel like I know exactly what I want to do with my life, and I think that's,
I'm glad that's how you feel. I'm genuinely happy for you.
No, thank you.
It was quite the journey, and I mean, it's not everybody gets out of that. Not everybody is able to. And last time I saw you, the first thing I told you is like, Matt, you look jacked.
Thanks, man.
You look better. The smile was no longer forced. It was just
man.
Natural.
By the way, speaking of jacked, I have a great relationship with sports now. I just do it because I love it. But my goal for last year was to hit a 100 kilo ass to grass squat. And on the 31st of December last year, I hit the 100 kilo ass to grass squat. So I was super psyched about that.
Congratulations.
Yes, thank you.
So to close this part, so we would say discipline over motivation, right? Or is it the other way around for you? Because you aren't motivated to get yourself.
You know what I think it is, honestly, is discipline leads to motivation. I think oftentimes if you want to I think they do go together to a certain extent, but I think oftentimes if you do something for a long enough time, you become more motivated. And I think that applies to almost everything, and it applied to, unfortunately, me getting worse. I was doing something for a long enough time that I became motivated to continually to get worse. But if you do something for a long enough time out of discipline, that's good, then it can continue after that, and you become more motivated because you're seeing the benefits of that discipline, and then you start to realize, set your next goals based on that original discipline that you had. So that'd be my response to that, I guess. Yeah.
Cool. That dopamine, and also that dopamine hit during the process.
For sure.
Of course, because as far as I understand, there's the positive dopamine, and if you scroll, you're also getting dopamine, but that's not the dopamine you want, But
no.
Dopamine from a workout hits different. Yeah.
For sure. And I think dopamine also, when you achieve something that you've been wanting to achieve for a really long time, that dopamine really stays. It's not like, oh, I had a great workout today, or, oh, I did a really good job on that test, or, whatever it is. I had a great first date or something. It's more about achieving something that you've wanted for a long time, and then setting your new standard of dopamine almost, and then trying to get that next source of dopamine, which is your next big goal that you want to achieve.
That's right.
So that's kind of how I think about it. Yeah.
All right. Moving to Vienna.
Sure.
Why?
I risk to offend a lot of Austrians here, but I consider it the only city in Austria. Coming from the US, I think even Graz feels really small to me, and Villach especially, 60,000 people, approaching maybe 70,000 soon. We'll see. It really just felt too small for me. I think at the time it was nice to really kind of have that break and just live on the countryside. Obviously I went through some hard times there, but I don't generally regret the experience. I love the city now. I love to go back. I think it's awesome. But Vienna for me was just so much more aligned with my interests, which is more so music, sports, stuff going on generally, interacting with more people. And I love life on the countryside, like I say, in Austria, but Vienna really was the only city that could satisfy my main passions in life, I think, which is also why I'm here. And, to a certain extent, it also provides the most opportunity for somebody who's looking for a job and trying to stay in Austria. I think Vienna's I know Vienna is very diverse. Yeah. And there's a lot of people in my situation. I think in Villach, it's very Austrian heavy. And I still remember, for example, that, I knew Muhammad. But in terms of people with black skin, there were maybe, I don't know, how many people in the town did you know? There were not many.
Maybe maximum 3.
Yeah.
What's who I was friends with?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's what I'm getting to is I knew you, Mohammed, and this other dude at the gym. And one day I walk into the gym and I see Mohammed and him speaking to each other. It's like, okay, I guess all of them know each other, But no, it just wasn't a super diverse place. So even though, I don't not necessarily, let's say, look Austrian. I think if people look at me, they won't immediately think, oh, this guy's not Austrian. Of course, when I have an accent, they know. But I still felt like in Vienna, maybe it just felt like at the time, particularly when I still kind of felt a little bit new, it was also a little bit more inviting in some ways. So I think that helped, definitely having a lot of people that were going through a similar situation of trying to integrate and trying to, stay, get jobs, figure out the whole situation and everything. So that was also something that played a role for sure.
Okay. Languages.
Yeah.
I feel like, okay, I think you told me how many you speak, but it's very impressive.
Thank you.
So what I know is, of course, you being American, your English is your mother tongue. That's,
yes.
German. Yeah. And then we have, what surprised me most is you're writing with Konstantin in Russian.
Yes.
Yeah. Who connected us, by the way. So thanks, Konstantin.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me, how are you doing that?
Yeah. So I guess first I'll say the journey started with French, which is kind of random in a certain way, but it's because my grandmother is French and she was born on a farm. She had 16 brothers and sisters. So my French family is huge.
Okay.
I didn't learn French because they taught me, because they spoke. I learned French to connect with them.
Oh, cool.
And funny enough, actually, the reason why I'm in Europe and in Austria is because my study abroad experience in France was so positive that I decided for the first time, I think I really like life here a little bit better than in the US. After that, I learned Spanish because, I was living in California, huge Latino population.
Yeah.
In certain cities, it's more Latino than it is white, let's say. And it was very close to French. So I learned that pretty quickly.
Okay.
German, I started learning because when I was studying abroad in France, I had a very positive experience in Germany. And I just decided as a hobby, you know what? I really like this language learning thing and I really like Germany. Let's just start learning German. I had no intention at the time moving there.
Oh.
I thought I was going to move to France. And now I'm in Austria.
Oh, wow.
But and then actually Russian I started learning because at our university in Austria, we had to, as part of the curriculum, learn a foreign language, take a foreign language course. Our choices were German, but my German was already above like basic level at the time, so I didn't choose that. Italian, which was to me too close to Spanish, and I was kind of still learning Spanish at the time, so I didn't want to get them confused.
The confusion, yeah.
I love Italy, I love Italian people, but I didn't want the confusion. Slovenian, and it's funny because now I absolutely love Slovenia. I always tell people if Austria just sunk into a sinkhole, I would move to Slovenia. I love the country, but at the time I thought, nobody speaks Slovenian. It's such a small country. Why would I learn it unless I wanted to learn to live in Slovenia? So by default, and because I was always a little bit interested, Russia was always super mysterious to me because, the US and Russia have not had the best relationship over the years. Yeah. And there's all this propaganda and mystery and everything. And this, so I thought, let's learn Russian. And Eddie, there were probably 20 people in the class at the beginning of semester 1, and it turned into like 8 after the end of the semester. And then after semester 2, it was like 4. This is not an easy language, I must say. I mean, sure, there's, Chinese, I'm sure. I actually was learning Mandarin for a little.
Yeah.
I gave it up, but that's harder for sure.
Okay.
Japanese, Arabic, I'm sure there's some harder ones, but Russian it's
up there.
It is not an easy language. But really what's inspired me to keep going was one, the professor.
Okay.
Thought he was awesome.
Was it Colin?
No, it was, gosh, I always called him Professor. Or Joseph Orschitz or Witz or something like that.
All right.
And then there was, I made great friends with the Russians that were in our program. And I think that just led me to kind of having this more open mindset in terms of ignore propaganda, ignore politics, just take people on the level of people and, culture on the level of culture and value the good things and realize that there's things that people don't always agree with, but people are people at the end of the day. And so I continued to learn it. And I think at this point, the reason why I'm continuing is one, because I'm not going to give up now. I put in too much energy. I'm just going to keep going. I really want to take my C1 exam this year. We'll see,
C1 in Russian.
C1 in Russian. Yeah. I want to take it before the end of the year. And then also I really like, the friends that I made along the way, and a lot of things about the culture. So all right. I continue. Yeah.
Okay. So I wanted to ask what you're actively working on. Yeah.
Yeah. That's one of them.
So, so currently, because, I just want to know how you balance everything at the moment,
Yeah. I balance everything because I'm super organized. And because I do not yet have a family. So I think those two things allow me to do a lot of stuff in my life right now.
Right.
Because I think the more organized you are, the more time you have for everything. You don't waste any time, right?
That's true. So
yeah, in terms of what I'm actually currently really focused on, Russian is one of them.
Mm-hmm.
German is also one of them. I want to take the C2 exam this year. I would say without studying, I could pass the C1. The C2, I definitely have to study for, because there's certain things in writing I definitely wouldn't do. I think in terms of like understanding, I'd be fine. I think also the way I speak is a little bit more and not so formal. I think I could better myself in that way. Sports, I want to continue to get stronger. I've been lifting a lot recently, and music. I'm really, really into music. I am the singer and songwriter in a band. I play bass as well, and I do all the production for my band. I would also love to join a band as a drummer. Because I've always loved drums, and I started learning about 3 years ago, and I've gotten to the point where I think I could be a drummer as kind of a side project, join a band as a drummer, but still have my main band where I'm, singing and songwriting. So
cool.
Yeah. So those would be and also finding love, of course.
Congrats on that.
Yes. Thank you. But yeah, I think those are my current passions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll touch on the love story next time.
Great. Yeah.
I know a little bit.
We'll see. We'll see how everything progresses first.
Let's exactly. Yeah. So being an American in Europe, or Austria, what surprised you the most? I mean, you already talked a few things that you've been to France, you've traveled a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe the most surprising thing, that you went through.
Yeah. There are so many things, really. I mean, you could talk about Sunday, just what everything's closed. Like people, what are you supposed to do? Like, you could talk about the pastries. You could talk about the amount of vacation I get per year. But I think the thing that surprised me most is the safety. I know that sounds crazy, but Austria being not only a neutral country in terms of like global safety, but also within the country itself, the amount of just honesty in this society, honest people, trust that people have in each other, particularly like when you're living more am Land instead of in the city, but also Vienna is super safe. I never necessarily felt endangered on a daily basis in the US, but I also never felt safe. I remember when I first arrived at the Villach Hauptbahnhof, the main train station, at like 2:00 in the morning on my first day in Austria, and I saw like this old lady walking by herself across the city. I'm like, this is safe, man. And just every experience since then has just really made me value how peaceful, safe this society is. And just, I'm not trying to say you can be totally naive and trust everybody and you shouldn't lock your bike and you shouldn't do everything like that. But the amount of just general lack of worry, I think on a daily basis for me as a male, by the way, I can't imagine how that is for, let's say, like my sister, if she moved here, how different that would be. But I think that was probably the most surprising thing about Austria to me, because even in France, like France is significantly safer than the US, but it's not as safe as Austria, not even close. And I think, yeah, that's something that you can't detect by Google, of course, before I moved here. But when I got here, just this feeling of that, it was amazing.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
And maybe you could add on to that about the social systems, your thoughts on traveling,
yes,
your thoughts on freedom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in terms of, I think as an American and other Americans that moved to Austria, they can relate to this for sure. In the US, it's every man for themselves. And in Austria, you don't feel that. You have great healthcare. I think, Austrians pay tons in taxes.
Yeah.
I like that, however, because I actually see what my taxes are going to. I think when I was in the US, I'm like, why am I paying these taxes when I still have to do everything myself? In Austria, you pay for great public transport, great healthcare, great job security. I could continue. I mean, there's so many things that you pay for, but that definitely contributes to the feeling of like security generally, or just, ease of life, because I think you feel a lot more eased up to enjoy life when you realize that, I mean, I can't say nothing bad is going to happen, because obviously bad things can happen, but when you just don't feel like every day is a fight. And that's what I would say in terms of, that social aspect. Yeah.
Matt, where does home feel like now?
Vienna.
Yeah.
It does.
With conviction.
100%. Yeah. Well, let's not say 100%, because who knows? Maybe one day I'll be like, I'll 60-year-old Austrian, and I'll say, I want to move back to my hometown, Villach, who knows? But as of the time being, I have absolutely zero intention to leave Vienna. So
I do agree with you, and look at the public transport, like you're just everywhere fast. And yeah. And also a big one for me is I was comparing the rents in Villach and Vienna, and I was like, why am I here if the rents are relatively the same?
Yeah.
So just like, I'm out of here,
Yeah.
Now we're closing up, So if we were to go back to FH, what would you have told yourself on day one with what you know today?
Man, I would just say, I mean, I know it sounds generic, but you'll find yourself in the end. Just everything that you're going to go through is going to be such a strong experience and have such a massive effect on the way you live the rest of your life. But in the end, you will be certain that you made the right choice to come here. So I wouldn't tell myself, avoid certain things or anything. I think what I went through was horrible, but I think everything culminated in a lesson for myself that I'll take with me for the rest of my life.
I like that. I like that.
Thanks.
What are you becoming next?
An Austrian. And I say that as a joke, but at the same time, I just got confirmation last week from the Emma 35 that I have my first citizenship appointment at the end of the year. So I literally will be, that's my next goal is, I mean, I told you all these other goals, but that is once I achieve that goal, that's kind of the cap on my journey to assimilate, journey to become an Austrian, after that, it's kind of like my new life. I won't be Matthew, I'll be Matthias. No, I'm kidding. I'm not actually changing my name, but I think that's a huge, massive point that probably I won't actually be Austrian until 2027. But, this year I'll submit all the documents and hopefully they like me and they accept me. So
what's something people don't see about your journey, Matt?
What's something they don't see?
Yeah.
Well, kind of a lot of what I already talked to you about. I actually, it's funny because I don't know why I saved this moment for a podcast, but I haven't told many people about this. But no, what's something that people don't see about my journey? I think I'll take it back to what I said about my friends and family in the US. I think some of them have begun to see this, but it's taken a lot of people a long time to realize that this isn't like a temporary trip, temporary, cool. I always get the question like, are you, traveling around while you're over there? And while you're over there, to me, it's like, they don't realize that I'm here to stay. I don't want to be like the jerk and say, dude, I'm never returning to the US. Like, get that out of your head. I'm not going to say that, but I think a lot of my past, let's say, family and friends. Well, not past family and friends, but people from my past life in the US think that I'll be returning, and I think that's what a lot of people can't see because I'm also not somebody that just overly promotes Austria or overly bashes on the US. So I think a lot of people don't realize really how I feel and how great I feel here. But I think maybe that's something that people don't necessarily know about my journey. And maybe even people that we studied with don't realize how excited I am to just stay here. And I mean, when I saw you, I was also so happy to know you're in Vienna because I didn't know if you were the kind of person that was going to return home, and by the way, not to say anything bad about that, but I just think a lot of times it's difficult in an international environment to judge how at home people feel in a new city or in a new country. And I guess that would be my response to that question for sure.
And I think it's relative because I may have known a few Americans who are like, came here, traveled, did it all, going back home.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And they're happy to go back home. So it's different from person to person. Right?
Yeah.
Matt, is there anything we didn't discuss that you feel like we left out? And this is up to you. I am done with my questions. You've answered everything. And maybe something we didn't discuss and you feel like it's still itching that you just want to take it out.
Yeah. Now this is like that moment in a job interview where they're like, hey, do you have any questions for us? No, honestly, Eddie, like I think at the beginning of this interview, I already expressed that I really hope that anybody that's listening to this, or at least one person that's listening to this, maybe shares certain aspects of the story and just realizes that everything is possible if you put your mind to it and force yourself to it. I think all you need in order to change your life in a certain way is just an idea. And that idea doesn't even have to be a goal at the beginning. It just has to be an idea, and you put your discipline in, and your discipline will lead you to a different way of thinking about this idea. It will transform itself into a goal. You'll start to become more and more inspired to continue this journey. And in the end, this little idea has turned into an achievement. And that's my final word.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eddie.
Thanks for, it's a great honor for me that you're the first guest. Thank you for taking the time. You know, as we already mentioned, it's hard to make appointments and this and that. So I'm very grateful, and I will be glad to have you again in the future. And take it easy, Matt. All the best.
I would be glad to be had. Thank you.
Thank you very much.